Welcome to Behind the Curtain, Nashville's movers, shakers,
and tastemakers.
Brought to you by Chord Real Estate, your key to the heart of Nashville. I'm Steve Luther alongside my co-host Van Hoy.
Here we peel back the layers of Nashville's vibrant scene, sitting down with the innovators, creators, and leaders who shape our city. From music to business and everything in between, we dive into the journeys that have brought them to where they are today.
We're here to uncover the stories behind the success, the passion driving their pursuits, and why they've chosen Nashville as their stage. It's about the people who dream big, push boundaries, and make this city truly unique.
So join us as we explore the heart and soul of Nashville through the eyes of those who know it best.
Well, welcome to Behind the Curtain. Today we're joined by Michael Conrad, a visionary entrepreneur at the forefront of the home inspection and energy efficiency industry in Nashville. As the CEO of Diligent LLC, Michael has revolutionized the sector by offering a comprehensive range of services from basic real estate inspections to advanced commercial building asset management. His commitment to combining clean technology and trustworthy service has set a new standard in the field. Michael's ventures, including Perimeter Pest and Riverside Environmental, further showcase his dedication to modernizing and simplifying essential services for homeowners and businesses alike. Michael, welcome to the show.
Very kind of you. Thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Well, Michael, you're, we talked about, a little bit about this at lunch when we first met. A lot of people that say they're business owners are really creating a career for themselves, a job for themselves. They're not really creating a business so much. You, I think, very, very similar to us, kind of took a business approach when you started. How has your entrepreneurial mentality influenced horizontal, vertical expansion in your business, and just kind of getting you up and running with Diligent?
Yeah, I have taken an incredibly sort of self-taught, organic approach to business, and there's a lot of times where I feel like I've been able to throw off the shackles of bad process that others have fallen into. And there's other times where I feel like I'm just blindly stabbing in the dark. And American business has been this sort of the forefront of the American dream. Owning your own piece of the world, owning land, that's been part of it. But sort of being in charge of your time, being in charge of yourself and in your own destiny. Sky's the limit, right? And so this sort of interwoven narrative in sort of the grander American bootstrapping sort of paradigm has had people say, there is good and benefit for me and mine in starting a business. But you're right. A lot of times it starts out as, and sometimes never gets off the ground further than, a job. Yeah. You own a job. You don't own a business. A business is most easily defined as the thing that runs without you relatively successfully. Mm-hmm. Now, that could be for a relatively short period of time without you or lengthy periods of time, but a business is better understood as other people help make this thing a moving machine, and you are a part of that or a lesser part of that. And so initially, I started out with the most one-dimensional idea and goal in this. And that was, I wanted to build something that I could control to a certain extent, but mostly that it could eventually run without me. So I knew I had the right idea to start with, but let's call it what it is. I was the floor sweeper. I was the CEO. I was the secretary. I was the garbage man. I was everything, as we all are. Of course. And in the service industry, in the trades, this is most easily seen. The guy out there networking and the guy out there selling jobs is also the guy strapping on the proverbial tool belt and performing those jobs. So that was my experience. But I quickly learned that I was suffering in quality on both sides of the fence. I wasn't able to deliver product or service quality at the repeated level that I want. And I certainly wasn't able to be out there networking and selling and making new relationships and long-term, partnerships successfully because I was back and forth and back and forth. And so trying to navigate the balance immediately, again, no business school here, just was one of those smack in the face of, you have got to replace yourself in this part of the business, which then became, you got to replace yourself in this other part, and then this other part. And that's what a business ultimately becomes, is slowly replacing yourself more and more until one day you're really just more of a guide, a shepherd, a board member, or whatever that ends up becoming.
We're talking home inspections, right? Like,
Among other things. But yeah.
okay. Like, wow, we got deep real fast. And I was like, I thought we were talking about inspected houses and some pest control.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Well, I mean, think about it. Is any one of the jobs that we do, from radio DJ to real estate to street sweeper, is any of it grander than just what the most basic task it is at the beginning?
Yeah.
And then as you go along, it has the opportunity to grow to something more.
Right.
You know, you could speak cheekily about selling houses, and that.
Oh, you sure can.
Yeah. That
I do.
all we're doing is just slinging real estate. All we're doing is just opening doors. All we're doing is just pointing to a place on the page we're selling.
Oh, you just threw a right at the bow of his boat. All we're doing is opening doors.
But
Oh,
I think we both know that there's quite a bit more to it than that.
oh yeah.
And as you look out into, doctors aren't just flesh cutters or knee knockers or heart listeners any more than real estate agents are just page pointers or door openers. And home inspectors aren't just defect finders or picture takerers. We're all so much more than that. But I do think, if you want to get right down to it, if you don't go beyond that, if you don't create something that has process and automation and be able to replace yourself, well, then no, you haven't gotten past layer one. And so, yes, I love the subversion, Van, because most people are like, well, hold on a minute, I thought we were just talking about home inspection. Because in our minds, we say, oh, a plumber is just a person who turns a wrench.
Right.
A roofer is just a person who nails down a shingle. Exactly. I've been to the moons here. And a home inspector is just a person who finds things. But in reality, aren't we both shepherds in our own right?
Right.
Shepherding through the technical part of real estate versus the sales and sort of communal part of real estate.
Oh, I love it. You didn't warn me.
So home inspections was my way in because at the end of the day, I was a hammer swingerer.
Oh, okay.
I was a welder. I was a carpenter. I was a blue collar guy, grew up in a blue collar household, but I sort of longed for something more in a way that I could not define because I didn't go to business school, and so I didn't know what business was. And so building something bigger than myself started out very one-dimensional. Just do the job, do it well, try to make it better, fail because you can't do all the things.
Sure.
Try to replace yourself, rinse and repeat, grow.
So you're a tradesperson. You knew how to use a hammer. You could build. You could do repairs, fabricate, whatever. You found a way into the industry, and then when did the light bulb go off?
It's funny you talk about the way into the industry like it's a club that I knew I was going to try to go to.
Okay.
I didn't even know the club existed.
Oh,
I didn't even
isn't that the best kind of club there is?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't that I had stumbled into the speakeasy accidentally. It was that I just knew that the part of the world that I existed in that I liked the most was the talking about the built environment.
Got it.
I like the building part, but I like the talking about the built environment way more. I say I backed into real estate because I realized, this is where people need someone who knows about houses, who likes to talk. That's really what it came.
I love it.
I was just a talker.
Yeah, with knowledge.
But I think it does take a bit of a shift in your mindset and a little bit of an ego check. Because I think a lot of people, when you go into something, you're going into a field where it's like, I'm really good at this. Like I'm going to be the best at this.
He's talking about himself.
But it's, do you think of yourself as, am I a real estate broker or am I an entrepreneur? And it's hard because when you look at comparing yourself to other businesses, often it's like, well, I see what some of these other agents are doing. Should I be comparing myself to that? But it's really more about, that's not the race I'm running anymore. I got to look at just businesses and how well am I doing in terms of profitability and cost controls and efficiency. And so it's just looking at things differently than, I do this one service or I have this one product. I'm a business person now. I'm not the thing that the business does.
Yeah, I think we very easily get confused by the idea that we're all subject to the same factors, and that we all have the chance for the same type of success, which in reality, other people have access to experience, relationships, opportunities that we don't have access to just because there are different stations of life we all come from. Mm-hmm. And so the visual success that someone else is experiencing, which of course I'm saying visual success because it may not be totally real, maybe an Instagram version, is not fair for me to chase because I have my own circumstance and my own game. And you're right, it's taken me a long time to try to sort through some of these social difficulties in my mind around, well, what is the success that I'm chasing after? And so I got to use my factors and create the best version of success. Now, I think that the building blocks for success are the same, regardless of our differences of experience and opportunities, because automation, repeatable process, expandable quality, and you talked about vertical integration, remonetizing and re-interacting with the same types of clientele. I think all of those are the blocks, but they're going to look different. And so I see people I get kind of, upset about sometimes. Man, they're really successful. And for some reason, I've judged in my mind that they shouldn't be because they haven't worked the same number of units of work that I have. I've put more effort in. Well, I may have had a harder road, which required more effort. They have had an easier road, which required more effort.
Right.
I may be on a 25-year journey. They may be on a 3-year journey, or vice versa. I may be on a short journey.
That's right.
On a long journey. And so it's a difficult thing to parse out. No one's wearing stickers on their head that said, I had these things that got me here, or I have future problems that I'm going to have because of what I'm doing now.
That's right.
And so, yeah, it's really hard. And you're right. We all deal with these misconceptions around what is a real estate agent, what is a financial planner, what is a home inspector, what is a developer, what is a CEO of a medical company. Like, we have these ideas, but they're not always based in reality. And the truth is, now reality is so warped because of the digital footprint.
Right.
So home inspectors, I sort of classically say, are always subject to a lot of misconceptions or even preconceived notions about who they are and what they do. But the stereotypes are real. The stereotypes come from somewhere. Sure. And so, yeah, I think part of what you're doing on your side of the fence, what I'm doing on my side of the fence, is trying to subvert the norm to create brand awareness, right? Be different is one of the greatest ways to be seen. And
we've got that.
Yeah. And then try to under promise, over deliver, and then do it again and again and again and again. Like, if you can build one widget on a production line, good for you. If you can build 10,000 widgets and they're all high quality, okay, that is different. That is a different kind of production, a different kind of quality. And so in my world, we measure production in the numbers of thousands. And so we have to not just be good in one and then be like, oh, I made a mistake, I got to be better the next one. No, it's like, you don't have time to barely slow down. So you got to be like, pick it up, figure it out, move quickly, be better, and like produce on a massive scale.
Sounds to me like it's a good thing you didn't go to business school. You got it figured out.
Well, fail my way forward. Right?
It's awesome.
My father gave me that gift, is that every opportunity was an opportunity to learn. And oh man, I struggle with ego just like the next guy. But while I'm wrestling with the ego over here, I'm still thinking in the back of my brain, okay, well, what's the life lesson out of this? Don't get too, full of yourself. Man, the last 2 years have been so good. I have been beat with a club in the business world, and I have been beat down. That ego is at a good lower shape now because of the last 2 years. Because I was feeling pretty high on the hog in 21. I thought I could do no.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel differently about that now.
Join the club.
Let's get into some of the nitty gritty a little bit. You talked about being
He's getting us back on track here.
God.
You talked about being different. It seems like everybody knows a dozen realtors. There's a lot of home inspectors out there.
Yeah.
What was your strategy kind of launching Diligent to differentiate yourself from all the other home inspectors?
Oh my gosh. I read this little book called Zag early on.
Steve loved his books.
It's good. It's this idea that when everyone is zigging,
Okay.
be
Zag.
right? And so radical differentiation was the root idea in marketing. And I just was really latched on to this. This was my first class in proverbial organic business school.
Yeah.
Was that be different. And so I did a couple things early that I think made a big impact. I asked everyone what they needed, and I tried to build something that responded to the needs. Because the root of profit and the root of business is born in solving problems.
Right.
But it's also born in risk. So you got to put yourself out there. And I also looked around at what everyone who was like me was doing and tried to do it differently. And there was a couple things that I feel like were like easy. Like I kind of got a few slam dunks, and maybe someone would be like, no, you put the work in, but I feel like they were too easy. For instance, I was good in the digital space 12 years ago in Middle Tennessee.
Right.
No one in my world was good at digital.
Yep.
There was no social media. There were no online reviews. There were hardly any websites. So I built all those things right away. And so it was easy to show out digitally early on. And then every time I was with people, I'd be like, look at these.
Right.
Look at this. And early, that made a difference. But here's a truth that I got to over the last couple of years that has been a very difficult thing to wrap my mind around. And that is what has worked for me in the past is not guaranteed to work for me now.
So true.
And so I rested on this idea that I could outwork people because of an internal physical battery. I had the ability to work harder than everybody else, but I also could move faster digitally. But now there's a lot more people that are younger than me,
right,
who can work pretty hard or maybe don't have as many kids or as responsibilities. And so they can put in more hours. So that's not a thing anymore. And quite honestly, I'm getting to that age in the 40s where it's like, okay, I think I still understand digital things pretty well, but I'm starting to slip.
I love it.
Oh, it's tough.
I love it.
And so it's difficult to face that the things that you used as your sort of like, well, I can just hit the NOS on the car, the accelerator. I can just hit this acceleration. Yeah, they're not working quite as much anymore. And so you got to continue to differentiate by doing the same things I did 12 years ago. That part's true. Ask everyone what they need, look around and see what everybody else is doing and do it differently.
But that's where you get the younger people involved and some crazy ideas and exciting things happen.
Yeah, no ideas are off the table.
I love it.
Yes. And specifically, no one was doing a completely rolled up one-stop shop idea 12 years ago. No one said that the due diligence in real estate, that is the discovery of information about whatever asset you're about to buy, that it was any wider than the singular inspection. You remember, you were in the business.
Of course.
Home inspections was a singular concept, and it was thought about so by all the three major parties: home inspectors, real estate agents, and home buyers. All thought about a home inspection as a singular concept. And so I can't even come up with the credit for this. I got this idea from a real estate agent early on who told me she sold Donna Summer's home. I was buying Donna Summer. And she had to have 17 professionals come out to take a look at that. And I was like, boom, there it is. Why not be the guy who can do all 17 things? And then it was other people along the way that gave me little seeds of ideas that said, well, why don't you incorporate this? Or why isn't this involved? And so this singular idea of like, let's gather information about the real estate asset that I want to acquire allowed us to expand into this sort of truly one-stop shop idea. Think about it like Home Depot. I don't just go there for my lumber. I also go there for my tools or my hardware or my appliances.
Light bulbs.
Or my light bulbs. Home Depot says, you can participate with me in one way or in many ways. It's up to you.
Right.
And so we wanted to create a similar format. And at the time, that didn't exist. Now it's more commonplace, but that was an early differentiator that seems kind of silly now, but at the time, nobody was really doing. In fact, there was some pushback from people saying, well, I don't know if you're qualified to do that. I don't know if you have the resources, knowledge, time, capability, expertise, whatever, in which to do those things. And so trying to build our brand around Yes, we can. The
Right.
answer is always yes. You need that. You need
That's
this.
right.
The answer is
That's
yes.
right.
Now there's a lot of technology that always is coming out, and you're integrating more and more services. What are some of the challenges you face with new technologies, with integrating services? Is it where you're doing more in-house? Are you collaborating with partners more? What's kind of been the strategy around all that?
Technology, both the physical tech that you might carry around as well as the digital software side of things, obviously gives you these boosts and pushes you forward. But something I did not figure out till about midway over the last 12 years is that there is your cup is full. As a technician on site, you have a fixed period of time in which to do things. If you try to incorporate all the software and all the technology and all the tools and everything that you could possibly think of, and there are so many options out there, you run over your time. You run out of time. And so technology has been a difficult balance in which to figure out what the people actually want. I'll give you an example. I've had a couple of people over the years call us up and say, do you do EMF testing, electromagnetic field? This would be a very fringe request, very uncommon.
Like because of the power lines.
Power lines.
Yeah, we had that come up a few times. Yeah.
Oh, people be concerned about a power line running through it.
Absolutely.
This or that. And so is the technology available? Yep, I could go get one. Is the experience, acquirable? Yeah. Is it useful for the widest number of people? Like that balance between who's going to care effectively. And so there's 100 examples like that of tools and ideas and knowledge and software that you could begin to incorporate. There's technology now on your phone where you can do sort of like a LiDAR scanning of a room, and it can formulate house plans down to like the 1/8 of an inch of accuracy, and it can map out 3-dimensional renderings, like Matterports. It's pretty amazing. It's time consuming. I got to walk around my phone as yet another of the things. And so as we begin to sort of chase this never-ending, what else can we incorporate into our one-stop shop idea, you kind of have to tap the brakes sometimes of like, what's too much? What is the people asking for? What's actually building value? There's times where we say, I don't think anyone cares about this thing. I think we should drop that. I don't think anyone's talking about it. I don't think anyone's needing it.
Talk some about the energy efficiency stuff, because I know there's tools like Flicks, the cameras where you can kind of see behind the walls and you can see where there's heat loss and all these things. But I feel like, at least here in Middle Tennessee, I think it's been more popular in other places, but here in Middle Tennessee, people don't care so much about a lot of the green features and the energy efficiency.
Yeah.
How do you incorporate this energy efficiency stuff that you guys see?
Is it a lot of your business?
It is a very small section because of demand. And I started in that world in sort of the green building, green energy space. And so I sort of have a personal passion for it, but beginning to offer as a separate service a long time ago, didn't gain a lot of traction and still required a fair amount of knowledge, experience, and tools. So there was a cost, but there wasn't a matching revenue and sort of traction. And so then I tried an experiment of like baking it in. Everything, you're going to get a look at this. It's like a green stamp or a green grade.
Right.
And the truth was, I was bumping up against technology, time, knowledge. How do I train this into other people? And is the effort of going about all that, again, gaining traction? I actually found, this may not surprise you, that there was a fair amount of pushback from the professional community about people saying, oh, we don't need that information, don't complicate the matters with this and that. And so that has moved into almost exclusive, just a kind of a custom consultation, when it comes up, and the larger conversations can be had with maybe a client we've worked with a lot. So that is a little bit sad because I don't live in a state where that is legislated, which is fine, and is not having that sort of a grassroots demand from the populace, which is fine. There's plenty of other things to do. I find it fascinating, but we incorporated in small ways. The FLIR cameras, the thermal imaging cameras is a useful way. when people are encountering usually moisture issues, they may be intersecting with energy efficiency. And so a lot of times we'll sort of bump up against talks of air leakages or insulation issues when we're starting to talk about attics and crawl spaces. Again, the nether regions of the home sort of don't ever get thought a lot about by buyers, owners, sellers. And so things like insulation, energy efficiency, air leakage, anything in that neck of the woods, it's kind of all part of that same conversation.
I call that unfun money to spend.
Yeah, because no one
unfun.
Yeah, it's not your appliances, not your counter.
No,
yeah. When you're sinking how many thousands of five-figure dollars into your crawl space and no one ever thinks about it. Yeah, that's a tough sell.
How much money do you sink into your nether regions?
That's a different part.
Inquiry minds want to know.
It's a whole separate thing.
For real. Like I like my old windows, you know?
Yes.
I live in an old house with old windows. Those window companies knock on my door they just see dollar signs over my front house. I'm like, you don't have any clue who you're talking to.
There's an aesthetics that you can't get away from. Because we can have a conversation about energy efficiency. Doesn't mean everybody wants to.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about like the grossly problematic homes that exist out there. I'm talking about there is a design.
Does he call me grossly problematic?
I hope not. But there's a design quality that I think we can't get away from.
Yeah.
And sort of the vernacular of the housing infrastructure in this part of the country versus another part of the country that's unique. And if we just go towards, the truth is the most energy efficient house is a giant concrete box, but I don't think we want to live in a giant concrete box.
No.
And so we have to balance this idea of form and function. And I get a chance in a lovely way, more than most, to talk about silly things like the intersection between form and function because I'm married to an architect. And
cool.
You can tell that our walks around the neighborhood are full of a lot of opinions about houses.
I love it. So so you have the home inspection thing that you serve the real estate world. Do you do energy efficiency reports for houses?
Very limited because I have a few friends in that space locally that are just quite frankly so much better at it than I am. I would consider us more of a lead source at this point for them because in my quest to sort of do it all, surprise, you can't do it all.
Right.
And so that's been just an ongoing battle of trying to figure out which things we incorporate and which things we don't. But yeah, there's a blending. And so there's a couple of really great companies that both do the fact-finding side of that as well as the fixing and managing and repairing side of it. The closest thing we get is one of our companies, Riverside Environmental, does crawl space management work. So that would be like moisture, mold, encapsulations, radon mitigation. And so that's about the closest we get to it is making sure that the bottom of your home is managed and, helping put you on a positive spin rather than a negative spin.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, the bigger you get, the more work you do, the more people you need. Staffing is always such a tricky thing as a business owner. What are some of the things you do to ensure that your businesses stay kind of at the leading edge in terms of quality and tech, and how do you keep that level?
So someone said to me that growth breeds complications, and complications kill growth. And so it's this constant tension and war around that. And so one of the things that I kind of thought I held in high esteem was the culture of the company, who you had, what the interactions were, both inside and outside of the workplace, like all of those interconnective tissues. I kind of thought I sort of esteemed those things, but until I started to have some cultural problems of losing people and then really not having good enough reasons, so to speak, for people to stay over the last 5 years, I realized, I don't think I was focusing on culture quite as much. Like, what is the tenor and the general feeling of both who we're hiring and how everyone's interacting and the frequency? And so I would say culture is a big piece of the puzzle of trying to chase down. Again, we're not talking about like Michael Scott in the office and like, everybody's going to the same parties or whatever.
You come to work barefoot, rocking out.
Yeah, no, it's not quite like that.
No?
but it is making sure that people know that you're caring for them beyond their ability to be a productive robot in a day, as well as making sure that you're giving them space. I think that work-life balance is a fascinating phrase, a total fallacy, a great goal to chase after. It's kind of all of the things. And so unsurprisingly, as sort of a younger Gen X, elder millennial, depending on where I fall in the spectrum, I focus a lot on work-life balance. And so giving people space to live their true lives rather than their work lives, I think is a piece of the puzzle.
I like that. Then, their true lives.
Yeah.
That's good.
And then I would say giving people an empowering in which to bring technology into their own day-to-day without being like, you're going to use Slack and you're not going to use anything else, or your name is mud. Really giving people, because I don't know who you're hiring, but the people that I'm trying to work with are people that are at least aware of tools that are going to make their life easy. But I don't know what those are. And so giving them the space to start to bring in softwares or technologies that are going to make their life easy is not as scary. Oh, we're being replaced by the robots. It's leveraging the good we have. We were talking before we started about there's so much in the digital space regarding editing of both video and audio that is now possibly able to be done by AI. And so does that put my multimedia guy out of commission? No, it turns him into like a 3x strong employee because he's leveraging technology.
Right. Where do you see the inspection industry going? Real estate's in a little bit of flux right now with what's going on, but where do you see the inspection industry going in the next 5 to 10 years? What are you doing to position Diligent to meet those changes? And what are some of your long-term goals for Diligent?
Yeah, I would say that the fate of the real estate industry and the fate of the inspection industry are tied to some extent. We're oftentimes very pulled in both directions. So the general service industry might include electricians and plumbers and HVAC techs, where that's kind of on one side. And then you have real estate and kind of the goings on of a transaction, they're professionals, agents, title, mortgage. So what is happening in these two big camps is directly happening to us because we touch both of those worlds. Mm-hmm. So number one, the real estate industry and really many of things that touch real estate are very fragmented. If you think about the number of real estate professionals, whether it's wholesale, commercial, buyer's agents, seller's agents, everything in between, land folks, it's very fragmented. And so the way of American business has always been defragmentation and aggregation. So we're going to start to see a coalescing of smaller groups into medium and larger size groups. I also think that real estate is ripe for technology disruption, as evidenced by some of the early forebears like Redfin and, of course, the big ever-present Zillow. Mm-hmm. And so we also are going through defragmentation. Now, there's roll-ups of companies, acquisitions, and bigger companies sort of swallowing littler ones happening even here in old Nashville Metro in the home inspection space. It's definitely happening in the pest control world. It's happening in the sort of the general services world. You don't have to go very far in the Nashville Metro to see a little Sprinter or a transit truck that says so-and-so plumbing, so-and-so electric, so-and-so HVAC, a Neighborly company. Neighborly is a private equity company that's rolling up service companies.
Gotcha.
And so the larger roll up and defragmentation of our space is happening. And I think that it's not necessarily a bad thing because it's forcing a certain streamlining. So there will probably be a division between your sort of, I think the classic example would be like a custom artisan versus a production. So you have like people who build custom artisan furniture, and then you have production built furniture. So that world is already separated into two buckets. And so much of our service world will likely separate into a sort of a better, clearer two bucket strategy. I wouldn't be surprised if not as a linear result of the NAR sort of lawsuit that buyers agents will have.
That's National Association of Realtors.
That's right.
For those of us who aren't.
Not directly because of that, but because it's been in a careful balance for a long time, and this is sort of ripping the Band-Aid off, or straw broke the camel's back, or whatever you want to say, there will likely be a reduction in the buy side focus, and that will probably go towards technology and will go actually to the way it was back in the 1800s and the early 1900s, back to single side and or dual agency representation. And then I wouldn't be surprised if other participants, both in the service space, mortgage, title, in that space, begin to play more of an escrow-based role like you might see in California or some of the other states that have more of an escrow focus. And so what we're doing right now is kind of like a supercharged version of what we've been doing forever. And that is we're looking around at like what other things that we can be involved in. And we're staging ourselves to become more widely integrated into both the service space and the real estate space. And then we're still asking the questions, what do people need?
Right.
And what is everybody else doing? But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if as real estate related duties, you might say opening up a door or advising at one portion of a transaction, section. If those duties begin to fall more on title, mortgage, even inspection, and so we're just putting ourselves in the path of change and saying we're ready and we're going to spool up into whatever we need to when the need arises.
Wow.
Do you think there is going to be a bigger move to getting inspections done by the sellers, pre-list? When we've done it, depending on the market, it's been a great tool for us to do like a certified pre-owned.
Oh yeah.
It seems like that is almost a better way of doing things, because you kind of know going in what your issues are and you can get those addressed on the front end. But it's always pushed back on. And I don't, do you think with what's going on with NAR and buyer's agents that shift could start to happen as well?
Do you remember when, not Carvana, but what's the other big one?
CarMax.
Thank you. When CarMax broke on the scene, everyone was like, ew, a giant used car sales company. And then if you've ever been to CarMax and gone through, they have a weird set of fences and guardrails and stuff that is pretty different than a traditional used car buying experience.
Right.
And it was meant to say the old organic ways of doing things didn't work. So we're creating these fences and these guardrails around a buyer's experience so that it's kind of shoehorned into a linear process. You come, you look, you purchase. This idea of negotiation and quality of product just kind of went out the door. And so I think we'll probably see something similar. The largest asset besides a house that most people purchase is a car. And if you had a Mercedes-Benz or a Maserati or anything of a high-end car, and you use that as your daily car, you might end up with a coffee spill on the little, rug under your feet or some crumbs in the seat, and no one would think less of you. But you would no sooner sell your car trying to fetch the highest dollar possible with crumbs in the seat or coffee stain on the rug.
Of course.
You would put it into its best possible shape. And if someone said, well, if I take this to the mechanic, am I going to find problems? Most people would say no, because I already had taken it to the mechanic and figured out the problem so that I wouldn't be caught unawares. The idea that we are in a willful ignorance stance as sellers of property is very odd. We are effectively, to take it to its logical end, we are willfully ignorant, hoping that we get stupid buyers, stupid agents, and stupid inspectors who will not see all the things that we didn't know about, when in reality, we didn't choose to know about them because we didn't do any effort in which to do the knowing. And so if you're playing a card game and it's about who has the stronger cards, you would want to know what your cards are before you played the game. Yeah. You'd want to pick those cards up off the table. Selling a house without knowing is either like selling your Maserati with crumbs in the seats and coffee on the floor, or trying to play a card game without knowing what your cards are. Someone's going to tell you, hey, you have these crappy cards. And you're going to be like, what? I didn't know. I lose the hand. Oh, dang it.
Right.
That's, of course, very silly. And so knowing what our cards are, polishing up our assets to go to market this is all very obvious when we come up with silly examples. And for some reason, we've gone decades and decades and decades without doing it with our largest investments and our largest assets. And honestly, the reason is very forgivable. It's because we organically came out of a dual agency world, sort of pre-World War II, where there were no buyer's agents and sort of things were just maintained at a higher quality because they were simpler in which to do so. We live in a largely complicated space in the built environment now. And so people don't know. The old analogy is, old grandpa, he could milk the cow, fix the fence, fix the house, fix the car. I mean, he knew everything about everything.
Right.
And sort of the today's young person, doesn't hardly know how to do any of those things, if not none of those things. And so knowing the asset before you sell it is not part of the conversation because it's not intrinsically in us anymore. And so, yes, double negotiating contracts, which is what we're doing. I think your house is worth $500,000. Cool. I agree. Let's have a contract. Cool. Oh, I did an inspection. Turns out your house has $50,000 of work, which means you don't have a $500,000 house. You have a $450,000 house. What are you talking about? I'm angry. So am I. You're renegotiating the second time. We need to move away from double negotiations and into as-is products, like with every other asset we try to buy and sell, and full transparent disclosures. And the fear of disclosure that has crept its way over the last 15 years into the conversation in real estate professionals is hilariously absurd. I mean, like, if we talk about it with any analogies, we all laugh at it. But if we talk about it with its true reality, we're all like, oh, well, this is serious. We shouldn't do that. Don't send me the report. I don't want to know about the house. It's like, what?
Right.
If we don't want to know about the house, we'll just have like ChatGPT sell the house. I mean, I don't know. ChatGPT doesn't know. And so if we're going to provide value through this coming change in the market, we have to start to look at, well, I need to truly represent and advocate not just for the buyer, but for the house. And so the future of real estate looks like advocacy and getting your hands dirty. And this has become more of an Instagram industry than it's become a hands dirty industry. And so, yeah, it's ripe for disruption. And I think we'll all be smart to put ourselves in the path of the change.
Well, Michael, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Isn't that great?
We are running up on time, so thanks for coming. If someone wants to get a hold of Diligent for any of the vast number of services that you guys perform, what's the best way for somebody to reach out to you?
Look us up online at getdiligent.com. You can check out our podcast, our family of brands that we have available in the Middle Tennessee region.
Quickly, what are your family of brands?
We have Diligent, Perimeter Pest, Riverside Environmental, and of course, the Business of Homes podcast.
I like it.
Well, it was a pleasure. Thanks for coming, and we will see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.
Well, that's a wrap on today's episode of Behind the Curtain, Nashville's Movers, Shakers,
And Taste Makers.
We hope you've been inspired by the stories of passion, perseverance, and innovation right here in Nashville.
A big thank you to our guests for sharing their journeys and to you, our listeners, for joining us. And of course, our gratitude to Chord Real Estate for making this conversation possible.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform.
Thank us?
Yes, you did.
Oh, I guess I did. Well, thank us. Okay.
Like I was saying.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite platform to catch every episode and hit that notification bell. We've got plenty more fascinating guests lined up, ready to share their insights and inspirations.
And we love hearing from you, so reach out to us with your thoughts, questions, or suggestions for who you'd like to hear from next.
Until next time, keep chasing your dreams and making your mark in Nashville.
Oh, my goodness.
Remember,
Am I talking to Casey
it's
Kasem?
the people behind the scenes that make the city shine.
I love it. Take care. See you behind the curtain.